I was digging through a dumpster, starving and freezing, when a stranger in a suit called my name. "Are you David Miller?" he asked, holding a photo from my old life. "You just inherited $47 million. My world stopped. Could this be real, or was it a cruel trick? I'd lost everything, my home, my family, my dignity. Now, a dead uncle I barely knew was offering me a way out, but at what cost? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Veil of Vengeance for more powerful stories of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. The dumpster behind Antonio's Italian bistro had become my go-to spot. Not because the food was better, but because they tossed their bread at exactly 9:30 every morning, still warm, wrapped in plastic that kept it clean. I was 43, a licensed veterinarian with 16 years of experience, timing my life around garbage schedules. That October morning started with frost on my sleeping bag and hunger sharp enough to make me dizzy. The coat I'd found 2 weeks earlier behind a charity bin wasn't enough anymore. Winter was coming, and I knew what that meant for people like me. Some wouldn't make it to spring. I had just pulled out a half-eaten lasagna, still in its takeout container, when I heard footsteps on the wet pavement. Clean shoes from the sound, expensive ones that clicked with purpose, not the shuffle of security guards or the aggressive stomp of someone about to tell me to move along. David Miller. The voice said, professional, careful. David Joseph Miller. I turned slowly, the lasagna container still in my hands. The man looked like he'd stepped out a law firm ad. Navy suit that probably cost more than I used to earn in a month. Silver tie, leather briefcase gleaming in the gray morning light. His hair was silver, perfectly styled despite the wind. "Who's asking?" My voice came out rougher than I meant. 3 months on the streets changes how you sound, how you stand, how you meet someone's eyes. My name is Henry Blackwood. I'm an estate attorney from New York. He reached into his coat, and I tensed until I saw him pull out a photograph. "Is this you?" Taken in 2018. The photo showed me in my white veterinary coat, standing in front of my clinic, smiling like I owned the world. Back when I had a home, a practice, a wife who I thought loved me, a daughter who still answered my calls. "How did you get that?" "Your great-uncle Roland Harper passed away last month in Manhattan. You've been named in his will." I laughed, harsh and bitter. Uncle Roland, who sent me $5 and a birthday card every year until I turned 18, then nothing. I hadn't heard from him in 25 years. Blackwood's expression didn't change. Seals, and Harper was particular about family contact, but he kept track of everyone. He knew about your veterinary practice in Willow Creek. He knew about your divorce from Victoria. He knew about your current circumstances. My current circumstances. I looked down at myself, at the stained jeans I'd worn for 2 weeks, at the shoes held together with duct tape I'd found. "You mean he knew I'd been homeless for 3 months?" "Yes." Blackwood's voice softened slightly. "He knew everything and left you his entire estate." The lasagna container slipped from my hands, hitting the ground with a wet splat. His Manhattan penthouse on the Upper West Side. His 40-foot yacht moored in Cape Cod. His investment portfolio, his art collection, his rare books. The total value is approximately $47 million. My legs went weak. I grabbed the dumpster's edge to stay standing. "This is a scam. You're running some kind of con." Blackwood reached into his briefcase and pulled out a document. "The law firm of Blackwood, Whitman and Associates has handled the Harper estate for 30 years. Here's my card, my bar certification number, and a copy of the death certificate. You can verify everything." I stared at the papers, the official Mr. Andy numbers that couldn't be real. $47 million 0.6 months ago, Victoria had laughed at me outside the courthouse. "No one will ever love a broke man like you," she'd said, climbing into her new boyfriend Carter's Mercedes. "You're going to die alone in the street, David. You're pathetic." "There must be a mistake," I said. Uncle Roland had successful relatives. My cousin Daniel works on Wall Street. Travis is Bones, and a surgeon at CLSTS, Andy's and Luke's. Why would he leave everything to me? "There's one condition," Blackwood said, and there it was, the catch that would ruin everything. "I cannot discus Mr. H's edge, Mr. Maria. Bob ones, and knees, and bones, and reveling and raveling misses." Harper left specific instructions. You must come to New York to his penthouse and watch a video message he recorded. Only then will you learn what you must do to claim the inheritance. And if I don't, if I stay here, then in 72 hours, the entire estate transfers to an alternate beneficiary. Someone you know quite well, actually. He paused, studying my face. Your ex-wife, Victoria Miller. The world team wrote Merkle Bones, and here my he seals, and in Ben Mr. Marstone's SD, and Fields clothes and bones, and for my Mr. Merengi be mrag still in my bones, Tasha bones, and te feed the Despelia, Mulernchen 12 story to Storant lows, and the last 3 months favorite. Mr. Miller, Blackwood said, checking his watch clothes, and a Rolex that caught the weak sunlight. I have a car waiting. We could be IMR in New York by noon bones, and clothes, and Mr. Merwo store lights, and the clothes, and delights, and have learned a chance to clothes, and shower, change clothes, eat learnt bones, and a proper meal. Whatever your decision about the inheritance, at least give yourself that. I looked at the dumpster that had become Mr. Merclothes and lights, and learnt clothes, and eat breakfast lights, and in reveling woe's story at the Mrs. Mr. MRSD learned to sleep with one eye open, at the life that no longer felt like living. Somewhere in Manhattan, there was a penthouse with my name on it and $47 million waiting. All I had to do was find out what my dead uncle wanted in return. Give me 5 minutes, I said. I need to tell someone I'm leaving. As I walked to find Josiah, the Vietnam vet who'd taught me which shelters were safe and which churches actually helped, I couldn't shake the feeling that Uncle Roland had been planning this for a very long time. The uncle I barely remembered, who'd send me $5 every birthday like clockwork, had apparently been watching my entire life, waiting for me to fall far enough to understand whatever lesson he'd planned. The man in the $1,000 suit was still standing by the dumpster when I returned, looking as out of place in that alley as Hope in a homeless shelter. But he was real. The papers were real. And somewhere in New York City, my dead uncle had left me either a fortune or one last cruel joke. Either way, it had to be better than digging through dumpsters while my ex-wife told everyone I was already dead 18 months ago. I had bones, and a small-town 2-story and could want. My clinic on Oak Street in Willow Creek, Ohio, wasn't much to look at from the clothes, and learned to unraveling 12-story and reveling 12-story verted plight clothes, and Anwell's store jokes Andy House with a painted sign that real lights, and veterinary care. Learn tide, it was my kingdom. I knew every inch of those examination rooms, had person that was storely learned install 12 stolen store-to-store lights, Andre lights, and unreveling jokes Andites and surgery lights, had painted the walls soft green, because studies showed it learned it angsty lights. And this animat will store him jokes and lights, and reveling was jokes, and shun reveling unraveling she deemed sarted jokes, and done reveling for vun reveling reserta for vert began Elmer like any other. Lun reveling Gavarton Tamarases, examining Mrs. Peterson's ancient tabby cat when Victoria called. We need to talk tonight, she said, her voice carrying that sharp edge I'd been hearing more often. And don't say you're working late, Glurm saying. Victoria and I had been married 15 years. We'd met when she brugged 12-story her roommate's sick ferret back, when I was fresh out of veterinary sun reveling, and she was W. Mersorking at a bank, unraveling Mrs. Mersh jokes, and she'd L. Mrs. Eppin jokes, and N. Mrs. Shetwell story jokes, and Dervish jokes. Said she admired a sheed man lights, and who care about helpless lights anditures. Somewhere along the way, that admiration had turned to resentment. Why can't Joe jokes and she jokes, and you be more A-sheeds melt ambitious? She started asking about 5 years into our marriage. Look at Nadia's husband, Richard. He just made partner sheet at his firm. They're vacationing in Bali next unreveling month. Nadia W. she dry as best friend from college, and comparing our life to theirs had become jokes, and she'd smelt for right she'd Vic fat right of our area's clothes and check. Merspastime. Richard had bought Nadia a Lexus for her birthday. Richard had invested in cryptocurrency early. Richard was taking Nadia to Rome for their anniversary. I tried to explain for Vorten that I was happy with my practice Mr. Mercis, that we had favorited Mrs. We own our house, had zero debt except the mortgage, and I was doing work that matter sheet for Vorta favorite, MRD to me. Mrs. Mercelt with a Chen's golden retriever is alive because of the surgery I performed last week. I'd tell her, doesn't that count for something? It doesn't pay for a vacation home. she'd reply. The night she asked for a divorce, I found her in our bedroom packing a suitcase. "I've been seeing Carter Morrison," she announced, as casually as if she were telling me she'd changed grocery stores. He's an executive at Pharmex Industries. He actually has ambition. Carter Morrison. I'd met him once at a town fundraiser, all white teeth and firm handshakes. The kind of man who wore his college ring 20 years after graduation and made sure you knew his watch cost more than your car. The divorce was brutal in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Victoria's lawyer argued that she'd sacrificed her career advancement to support my modest ambitions. Never mind that she'd quit 3 different jobs in 10 years because she didn't like her managers. The judge awarded her the house, half the clinic's value, and monthly alimony that would crush what was left of my business. My mother, Doris, tried to help. At 71, she was living on Social Security and my father's small pension from his 30 years at the phone company. Dad had died 5 years earlier from a heart attack, right in the middle of mowing the lawn, gone before each Mers ambulance Erivedsmal, she jokes, and Mersmal. Mom offered me her savings, all $8,000 of it. "I can't take your mon check," I told her, sit in check. MRSR kitchen, that cameraging. Favorite Mrs. MRSR, smelt with the seals, jokes and dander in cheek. The tea like the apple pie she baked, she'd smelt it every Sunday. "Your father would want me to help," she'd insisted, her hemorrhaging, shaking slightly as she wrote, Mersmal to check. Check a check that I took it, promising to pay her back, knowing I probably never could. My younger brother, Derek, had done better for himself, managing a chain of hardware stores in Columbus. When I called to ask if he could spare a loan, just keep the clinic running until I figured things out, he'd gone quiet. "Dave, I've got my own family to think about. Maybe this is a sign you should try something else." Victoria always said you could done fast and hemorrhaging. Rec had hemorrhaging, taking her side. The clinic couldn't survive the financial ignored, and he hilariant smelt cheek, that check, that hemorrhaging. I had to let go of Jessica, my veterinary assistant, who'd been with me 8 years. Then Marcus, my receptionist. Finally, I was doing everything myself, working 16-hour DASMM Andes, sleeping in the back office to save gas money. Hemorrhaging. Car. With A the last animal I treat a car. With Ad was a stray dog someone found behind the grocery store, hit by a labor. Lecanard and hemorrhaging. Hemorrhaging. R with a car, with AG broken in 2 places. I fixed him, knowing I'd never see a penny for it, knowing it would be my last surgery. The next day, the bank foreclosed. My daughter, Abigail, was 16 then, a junior in high school. Victoria had poisoned her against me completely. "Mom says you chose your stupid animals over your family," she texted me. "She says you could have been a real doctor, but you weren't smart enough." That text hurt worse than losing everything else. Within 3 weeks of the foreclosure, I was living in my truck. When that got repossessed, check. I had Gray a backpack, a sleeping bag, and no heckar, with R to go. The Fillier and Tarntide on the streets. I walked until dawn, too scared to sleep, too proud to cry. By the 3rd month, I'd vol hemorrhaging. A boor. Car with Einard and car with Ailenkar, with Eitza Lerntignard, Anli aren't Lerntan to brutal mathematics of homelessness, which dumpsters had the best food, which corners of police ignored, learnt labor, learned ignored, and hit sheltered car, with Einard, and wouldn't steal your shoes while you slullabore. PT. The last time I saw Victoria was outside the Walmart, where I sometimes found a Mr. She Waynard, and ignored, and Voisin's walking out with Carter, both carrying shopping bags, laughing about something. She saw me before I could turn away. The disgust on her face was absolute. "God, David, you smell like a sewer," she said, loud enough for other shoppers to hear. "This is what you've become. Thank God Abigail doesn't have to see this." Carter put his arm around her, pulling her toward his Mercedes. But she wasn't done. "You're pathetic," she called back. "No woman will ever want you now. You're going to die alone, probably in some alley, and nobody will even notice for weeks." That was 6 weeks ago. Every morning since, waking up on cardboard or concrete, I heard those words. She was probably right. Men like me didn't come back from this fall. We just disappeared, became statistics, names on forms that nobody read. Standing in that alley with Henry Blackwood, holding papers that claimed I'd inherited millions, I couldn't reconcile the man I'd been with labor. Would I become the voice, and somewhere between the voice and with soft hands and a gentle voice, and this hollow-eyed stranger who knew which restaurants threw out food still worth eating, I'd lost myself completely. But Uncle Roland had apparently been watching the whole time, waiting for me to hit bottom, preparing something I couldn't yet understand. The October morning that changed everything started with me waking up behind a loading dock, frost making my joints ache like an old man's. I wasn't even sure what day it was anymore, Tuesday maybe or Wednesday. The days blended together when your only appointments were with dumpsters and their disposal schedules. Antonio's Italian Bistro threw out their left-to-voice Amber bread at 9:30 sharp. The owner, Mr. Lebumrauer, labor. See Andois in voice and learnt Mr. Antonio, was a decent man who always double-bagged everything and sometimes left the good stuff right on top. I think he knew people like me depended on his garbage. Once, I caught him watching from the back door as I sorted through bags, and instead of chasing me off, he just nodded and went back inside. I had just found container lasagna, barely touched, probably from someone who'd ordered too much, when I heard those footsteps, clean, deliberate, expensive chaumeries on wet pavement. Ailent learn months on the streets. You mistered I learnified danger by sound alone. Clean-shaven and David Joseph Miller. The man standing there looked like money itself. Navy suit without a wrinkle, silver tie that caught the light, shoes that probably cost more than I used to make in a week. He was maybe 60, silver-haired, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who'd never wonder where his next meal would come from. Who's asking? My voice came out defensive, ready to run if needed. My name is Henry Blackwood, estate attorney from the firm of Blackwood, Whitman, and Associates in New York. He reached into his coat slowly, like he knew sudden movements might spook me. I've been searching for you for 2 weeks. He pulled out a photograph, and my heart nearly stopped. It was me from my old life, standing in front of my clinic in my white coat, smiling like I had the world figured out. My hair was cut, my face clean shaven, and learned clean-shaven and shaven. My practiced eyes still had hope in them. Is this you, circa 2018? How did you get that? The photo was from my clinic's website, which should have been deleted months ago when I stopped paying for hosting. Your great-uncle, Roland Harper, passed away last month in Manhattan. Before his death, he hired private investigators to maintain current information on all family members. Blackwood's tone was matter-of-fact, like stalking relatives was perfectly normal. You were particularly difficult to locate after you lost your permanent address. Uncle Roland. I had maybe 5 memories of the man, all from when I was a kid, tall, always in dark suits, showing up to family gatherings but never really participating. He'd sent birthday cards with $5 bills like clockwork until I turned 18, then nothing. Mom had mentioned him occasionally. Her mother's younger brother, who'd made money in New York and forgotten his Ohio roots. I haven't spoken to Uncle Roland in 25 years, I said. Why would he be looking for me? Because he named you the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. The lasagna container slipped from my numb fingers, splattering on the asphalt. That's impossible. I assure you, it's quite possible and entirely legal. Black would open his clean-shaven, and briefcase would practiced Mr. Efficiency. Clean-shaven and practices. MRI's Harper's estate includes a Manhattan penthouse valued at $12 million, a yacht moored in Cape Cod worth $3 million, an extensive art collection, a library of rare first editions, and an investment portfolio currently valued at approximately $32 million. Total estate value is $47 million after taxes and fees. I grabbed the dumpster's edge because the world was spinning. $47 million. Yesterday, I'd fought another homeless man over a half-eaten sandwich. Now, this stranger in a suit was telling me I was rich. This is a scam, I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew no scammer would bother with someone like me. What could they steal? My sleeping bag? The $14 hidden in my shoe? Blackwood pulled out documents. Official-looking papers with raised seals and watermarks. The death certificate, he said, showing me each paper. The will, filed with the New York State Surrogates Court. My credentials from the New York State Bar. My firm has handled the Harper estate for 3 decades. But why me? My voice cracked. Uncle Roland has successful relatives. My cousin Daniel works for Morgan Stanley. Travis, Aunt Florence's son, had practiced Mr. Mriism anti-surgeon. They actually knew high Mriism and him and 6 recited him. Why would he leave everything to the family failure? Blackwood's expression shifted slightly, something like sympathy crossing his features. There is a condition attached to the inheritance issue, Andy. Mr. Harper left specific instructions that cannot be discussed here. You must come to New York to his penthouse and watch a video message he recorded before his death. Only then will you learn what's required to claim the estate. Of course, there was a catch. There was always a catch. What kind of condition? I'm legally prohibited from discussing it outside of the residence. He glanced at his watch, a Rolex that gleamed in the weak morning sun. However, I can tell you that you have 72 hours to hear the terms. If you refuse or fail to appear, the entire estate transfers to an alternate beneficiary. Who? Your ex-wife, Victoria Miller. I staggered. Victoria, who'd taken everything in the divorce, who'd laughed at my destruction, who told me I'd die unloved and unmourned in the street. The thought of her getting Uncle Roland's millions made me physically sick. Mim and roar Mr. Mriism, and Harper was very thorough in his research. Blackwood continued. He knew about your divorce, about Miss Miller's current relationship with Carter, Mr. Morrison, and Mr. Bowdy Morrison, and the recent financial difficulties since Lemerson Morrison, and Morrison left her 3 months ago for his secretary. Carter had left Victoria. Some part of me, the petty part that surviving on the streets hadn't killed yet, felt a spark of satisfaction. The private jet is waiting at the regional airport, Blackwood said. We can be in New York by noon. There's a shower facility at the airport lounge. Fresh clothes waiting. We estimated your size from old driver's lick-rents records. I looked around at my world. The dumpster I'd been feeding from, the cardboard I'd sleep on tonight if I stayed, Josiah's shopping cart in the distance, and the American flag he'd attached to it fluttering in the wind. This was my life now, but it didn't have to stay that way. What could the condition possibly be? I asked, more to myself than to Blackwood. I can say only this. Mr. Harper believed in testing character through adversity. He wrote in his final letter that he'd chosen you for reasons that would become clear. Testing character through adversity. I almost laughed. If that was a test, I'd been taking for 3 months straight, failing a little more each day. Give me 1 hour. I said finally, I need to say goodbye to someone, and I need to think. Of course. Blackwood handed me a business card, heavy stock that felt alien in my callous hands. The car will be waiting at the corner of 5th and Elm. A black Lincoln Town car, license plate BWA 00001. As he walked away, those expensive shoes clicking on the pavement, I stood there holding a business card worth more than everything else I owned combined. Somewhere in New York, a dead uncle I barely remembered had set up some kind of test. Some condition that would either give me $47 million or hand it all to the woman who destroyed me. I found Josiah 2 blocks over, sorting through aluminum cans he collected. Hey, brother, I said, something's happened. Either I'm about to get very lucky or I'm walking into the cruelest joke anyone's ever played. I found Josiah behind the old gas mart station, sorting aluminum cans into a shopping cart with military precision. Each can was crushed exactly the same way, organized / by brand. Old habits from his army days died hard, even after 40 years on the streets. Josiah, I called out, and he looked up, his weathered face breaking into a gap-toothed smile. Ohio Dave. Did you find breakfast? Antonio's usually good on Tuesdays. That's what he called me. Ohio Dave. Even though I corrected him a dozen times that I was from Willow Creek. Didn't matter to Josiah. Everyone needed a nickname in his world. Listen, brother, something's happened. I pulled out Blackwood's business card, the paper so white it seemed to glow in the gray morning. A lawyer just found me. Says my uncle died and left me money. A lot of money. Josiah squinted at the card, then at me. Have you been drinking that mouthwash again? That stuff will make you see things. I'm serious. He want me to go to New York today. If this is real, if even part of it is real, I might not be coming back. Josiah set down his cans and really looked at me. In 3 months, he'd taught me everything about surviving the streets, which shelters had bed bugs, which had decent security, how to stay warm using newspapers and cardboard, and where the cops would leave you alone if you kept quiet. He'd saved my life more than once, pulling me back when I want to give up entirely. You remember what I told you your first week out here? He asked. Don't trust anyone offering anything free. The other thing, I thought back to those early, terrifying days. Every door that closes, another one's waiting to open. You just have to live long enough to find it. That's right. He reached into his cart and pulled out something wrapped in plastic and handed it to me. It was a watch, old but clean, the kind with actual hands instead of digital numbers. Found this last week. Was saving it to trade, but you'll need it more than me. Rich people care about time. The gesture broke something in me. This man who had nothing was giving me one of his few valuable possessions. Josiah, I can't take this. You can and you will. His voice went stern, the sergeant he'd once been showing through. And if this thing is real, if you get this money, don't you forget us out here. Don't become one of those people who crosses the street to avoid looking at what they used to be. If this works out, I'll come back for you. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep, Ohio. Just remember, we're human. That's all any of us want, to be seen as human. I clasped his shoulder, this man who became my unlikely brother in the darkest period of my life, then walked to 5th and Elm. The black Lincoln was there, engine running, with Blackwood waiting in the back seat. The ride to the airport was surreal. The leather seats felt impossibly soft after months of concrete and cardboard. The car had heated seats, something I had forgotten existed. Blackwood handed me a folder with documents about Uncle Roland's estate, pages of legal language I couldn't focus on. AITA, the regional airport's private terminal. Blackwood led me to a lounge I hadn't known existed. The shower facilities are through there, he said. I took the liberty of having clothes delivered. We estimated your size from old driver's license records. The shower was transcendent. Hot water that didn't run out after 3 minutes, and soap that smelt like cedar instead of industrial disinfectant. I stood under that stream for 20 minutes, watching 3 months of street life swirl down the drain. My hands looked foreign when they were clean, my fingernails human again instead of black with grime. The clothes fit perfectly. Dark jeans, a button-down shirt, and a navy blazer. Nothing fancy, but clean and new. Looking in the mirror, I could almost see the man I used to be. If you ignore the hollowed cheeks and the way my eyes had gone flat on the private jet, Blackwood offered me coffee and sandwiches. Real coffee, not the instant packets I'd been stealing from gas stations. The sandwich had turkey, Swiss cheese, and lettuce that actually crunched. I ate slowly, my shrunken stomach protesting the richness. Tell me about Uncle Roland, I said, as we climbed above the clouds. The real him, not whatever story he wanted people to believe. Blackwood considered his words carefully. Roland Harper was brilliant, eccentric, and completely alone by choice. He built his fortune dealing in rare books and art authentication, but his real talent was reading people. He could look at a painting or manuscript and spot a forgery instantly. But more than that, he could look at the seller and know their entire story. Yet he chose to leave everything to a nephew he hadn't seen in decades. He kept files on every family member, Blackwood said. Your cousin Daniel, the investment banker, he tracked every transaction, every SEC filing. Your cousin Travis's surgical career, every patient review, every malpractice suit. And he had investigators sending reports monthly. Your veterinary practice, your marriage, your collapse. He watched me become homeless and did nothing. He was dying of pancreatic cancer. By the time you lost everything, he had weeks to live. But yes, he watched. He said, suffering reveals character in ways success never can. Through the jet window, I could see New York approaching, that famous skyline reaching up like fingers grasping at heaven. Somewhere down there was a penthouse with my name on it, $47 million waiting, and a condition I couldn't imagine. Mr. Blackwood, what kind of man puts conditions on saving his own family? The kind who believes salvation shouldn't be free, he replied. Mr. Harper often said that unearned money destroyed more lives than poverty ever did. As we descended toward Teterboro Airport, I thought about Victoria finding out about this inheritance. She'd left Carter after he cheated. According to Blackwood, she was facing foreclosure on the house she'd taken from me in the divorce. The thought of her getting this money if I failed whatever test Uncle Roland had designed made my stomach turn. But more than that, I thought about Josiah's words. Don't forget us out here. Don't become one of those people who crosses the street. Whatever Uncle Roland's condition was, I had a feeling it would determine not just whether I got his money, but what kind of man I become with it. The jet touched down smoothly, and Blackwood stood, straightening his tie. The penthouse is 40 minutes away. Mr. Harper's video message is queued up in his study. Are you ready to learn what he wanted from you? I wasn't ready. After months of having no choices beyond which dumpster to search or which corner to sleep on, suddenly having to make a decision worth $47 million felt impossible. But I stood up anyway, adjusted the blazer that still smelt like store packaging, and followed Blackwood into whatever game my dead uncle had planned. One more thing, Blackwood said as we walked to the waiting car. Whatever you might think of Mr. Harper after watching his message, know that he spent his final weeks perfecting this plan. He died believing he'd chosen correctly. The pressure of that faith, from a man I barely remembered, felt heavier than all the millions waiting in Manhattan. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building overlooking Central Park. Blackwood led me through a private elevator that required a special key. When the doors opened, I stepped into a world I'd only seen in movies. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a living painting. The furniture was all leather and dark wood, the kind that whispered rather than shouted its value. Original paintings lined the walls, and I recognized a Monet, even with my limited art knowledge. Mr. Harper's study is this way, Blackwood said, leading me through rooms that felt more like a museum than a home. The library alone made me stop and stare. Thousands of books, floor to ceiling, some behind glass cases with tiny brass plaques indicating first editions dating back centuries. The study was more intimate, dominated by a massive mahogany desk and a wall-mounted screen that looked out of place among the antiques. Blackwood gestured to a leather chair position in front of the screen. The video message will play once. Mr. Harper was very specific about that. I'll be in the next room when you're finished. He pressed a remote, and the screen flickered to life. Uncle Roland appeared, and my breath caught. He looked exactly as I remembered, but ravaged by time and illness. His face was gaunt, his expensive suit hanging loose on a frame that had clearly once been powerful, but his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and alive with purpose. "Hello, David." His voice was stronger than his appearance suggested. "If you're watching this, then Henry found you living on the streets, probably behind some restaurant, surviving on discarded food. I know this because I've been watching you for years, just as I watched all my relatives. But you, David, you were the one I was waiting for." He leaned forward, and I found myself doing the same, drawn in despite myself. "The condition for your inheritance is this. Within 5 years, you must help at least 100 people escape homelessness. Real, documented help, not just handing out money, but providing what they actually need. Jobs, housing, medical treatment, addiction counseling, psychiatric care, whatever it takes. Henry will oversee a trust to verify each case. You'll have access to the full fortune to accomplish this. But if you fail or refuse, everything goes to your ex-wife, Victoria." I felt my chest tighten. 100 people. I thought of Josiah, of the elderly woman who cried over half a sandwich last week, of all the invisible souls I'd lived among. "You're wondering why," Roland continued. "Why this condition? Why you? Let me tell you something no one in our family knows. In 1967, I came back from Korea broken. Not physically, though I had my wounds, but mentally and spiritually shattered. I told no one I was home. I lived on the streets of New York for 2 years, too proud to ask for help, too damaged to know how to return to normal life." He paused, his eyes distant with memory. A man named Maurice found me behind his bookshop one winter morning, delirious with fever, dying. He didn't just give me food or money. He gave me a job, a purpose, and a room above his shop. He saved my life, but more than that, he saved my soul. He asked nothing in return. Didn't even tell me his last name for months. The camera angle changed slightly, as if Roland had moved closer. I built my fortune from that second chance. I became successful, wealthy, and respected, but I also became paranoid, isolated, and unable to trust. I watched our family from a distance, keeping tabs on everyone. Your cousin Daniel, who steps over homeless people in disgust. Your cousin Travis, who called them parasites at a medical conference I attended anonymously. Your brother Derek, who had security remove a homeless veteran from a store's entrance last Christmas. Each word felt like a judgment, not just on them, but on who I might have been before my fall. But you, David, do you know what investigators reported about you? The first week on the streets, starving and scared, you found half a sandwich in a dumpster and gave part of it to an elderly woman who was crying from hunger. Last month, you spent your only $5 on antibiotics from a street dealer. Not for yourself, but for that veteran friend of yours with the infected wound. You had pneumonia yourself at the time. I remember that night. Josiah's leg had been getting worse, with red streaks climbing toward his knee. I'd been coughing blood, but infection could kill him faster than my pneumonia would kill me. Henry has surveillance footage if you're curious. Roland continued. 63 separate incidents of you helping others when you had nothing yourself. You kept your humanity when you had every reason to abandon it. That's why you inherit everything. He leaned back, a slight smile crossing his gaunt face. But here's what your relatives won't know until the will is read publicly next week. Your ex-wife, Victoria, is facing financial ruin. Carter Morrison left her 3 months ago for his 26-year-old secretary. She mortgaged the house she took from you to invest in one of Carter's schemes that went bankrupt. She's about to lose everything. I laughed, dark, involuntary. The irony was so perfect to hurt. If you refuse my condition or fail complete it, she inherits everything. Imagine that, David, the woman who destroyed you, who said you'd die unloved in the street, becoming rich from your failure. I thought the poetry of it might motivate you. But here's the secret, nephew. The 100 people you save, that's not really the test. The test is whether you can accept help yourself, whether you can take this gift and transform it into something meaningful, instead of letting pride or bitterness destroy you. Maurice saved me, but I never really accepted it. Never let myself be grateful. Never stopped seeing myself as alone. I died in this penthouse, surrounded by treasures but completely isolated, having pushed away everyone who tried to love me. He coughed, a rattling sound that spoke of the cancer that killed him. Don't become me, David. Take the money. Save your 100 souls. But save yourself too. And one more thing, something I discovered only while researching Maurice after his death. His full name was Maurice Miller. He was your grandfather, your father's father. The man who saved me was your blood, though neither of us knew it at the time. He died poor but loved, surrounded by family. Everything I never had. He gave away everything he earned, helping strangers like me. My vision blurred. Grandpa Maurice had died when I was 10, but I remembered him. Quiet, kind, always slipping dollar bills into our pockets when Mom wasn't looking. So, you see, David, this isn't random. It's a circle closing. Your grandfather saved me. I'm saving you, and you'll save others. That's how goodness survives in this brutal world. Passed hand to hand like a secret flame that refuses to die. The screen went dark, then lit up with one final message. You have 24 hours to decide, but I already know your answer. You're a Miller. You'll help them because that's what your bloodline does. What your grandfather taught without teaching. What you learn without learning. Welcome home, nephew. The screen went black. I sat in that leather chair in a $47 million penthouse, tears streaming down my face, thinking about Grandpa Maurice, saving a young veteran behind his bookshop, never knowing that veteran would one day save his grandson. Blackwood entered quietly. Mr. Miller, what is your decision? I stood up, wiping my face. Thinking of Josiah sorting his cans, of the elderly woman clutching her piece of sandwich, of all the invisible people waiting for someone to see them as human. I'll do it, I said, but not for the money and not because of Victoria. I'll do it because my grandfather would have wanted me to, because it's what we do. Blackwood smiled, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him. Mr. Harper said you'd say exactly that. Shall we discuss the trust structure? I looked out at Manhattan sprawling below, all those lights representing lives, stories, and struggles. Somewhere out there were 100 people I was going to save. But first, I had to save myself. Uncle Roland was right about that. The money was just a tool. The real inheritance was a chance to matter again, to be the man my grandfather would have recognized. Yes, I said, let's begin. I stood at those towering windows for a long time after Blackwood left the room, looking down at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. Each light represented someone's life, someone's struggle, someone's hope. 24 hours ago, I'd been digging through garbage. Now I owned this penthouse and had $47 million to change lives. The first person I called was Josiah. I had Blackwood drive me to a phone store to get a cell phone, then went straight back to the gas mart station. He was still there, arranging his cans for tomorrow's recycling run. Ohio Dave, he called out when he saw me getting out of the Lincoln. You clean up nice. That lawyer man wasn't lying. It's all real, Josiah. Every word. I sat down on the curb next to his cart, still wearing my new clothes but not caring about the dirt. I need your help. My help, brother? You just inherited millions. What could you need from me? I have to help 100 people get off the streets. Real help, not just throwing money around. You know these streets better than any social worker. You know who needs what, who's ready for help, and who isn't. I want to hire you as my outreach director. Josiah laughed until he realized I was serious. Dave, I haven't had a real job in 20 years. You've been doing a job for 20 years. Just nobody was paying you for it. You taught me how to survive. You've kept dozens of people alive with your knowledge. I need that expertise. Within a week, I'd established the Harper Foundation, naming it after Uncle Roland. The first office was small, just a converted shop front, but it was in the right neighborhood, where people who needed help could actually reach it. Josiah was my first hire, and his first suggestion changed everything. Don't make them come to us feeling like beggars, he said. Give them dignity. Give them choices. We developed a program where people could choose their path. Some needed rehab first. Others needed mental health treatment. Some just needed a chance, a job. Someone who believed they could be more than their worst moment. Each person got a caseworker, but more importantly, they got a mentor who'd been where they were. The third person we helped was Agnes, the elderly woman I'd shared my sandwich with months earlier. She didn't need much, just a safe apartment and someone to help her navigate Social Security benefits she didn't know she qualified for. When we got her into a senior living facility with her benefits covering the cost, she cried for an hour. I thought I'd die on the streets, she said. I thought that was my story's ending. By month 6, we'd helped 37 people find stability. Each success was documented and verified by Blackwood's firm, but more importantly, each success was sustained. We didn't just get people into housing and abandon them. We followed up, provided ongoing support, and celebrated their victories. That's when Victoria showed up. She looked different, desperate in a way I recognized because I'd worn that same expression. Her designer clothes were the same ones from our divorce, but they hung loose now. The Mercedes was gone. The superior smirk was replaced by something hollow. David, she said, standing in the foundation's doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. I heard about your inheritance. I heard about what you're doing. What do you want, Victoria? Carter left me for his secretary. The house is in foreclosure. I've been staying with friends, but they're getting tired of me. She couldn't meet my eyes. I was wrong about everything. You're worth 100 Carters. You always were. I looked at this woman who destroyed me, who'd laughed at my ruin, who'd told me I'd die unloved in the street. The old me would have felt satisfaction at her downfall. The street me would have told her to try the dumpsters behind Antonio's and see how she liked it. But the man Uncle Roland had challenged me to become saw something else, a human being in pain. I can't be with you again, Victoria. That bridge is burnt beyond repair. I know. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking if you could maybe help me find a job, something simple. I'll work. I'll do whatever it takes. The foundation helps people experiencing homelessness. You're not there yet. I will be soon. Her voice broke. Next week, probably. I gave her the business card of a regular employment agency. They're good people. They'll help you find something. But Victoria, this is all you get from me. No money, no special treatment, just this referral. You need to rebuild your own life. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and left without another word. M.Y. daughter Abigail reached out 3 months later, but not about the money. Dad, I saw an article about your foundation, she said over the phone, about the people you're helping. Mom told me lies about why you disappeared. I should have known better. I should have reached out. You were a kid. Your mother was all you had. Can I volunteer at the foundation? I mean, I'm 17 now, old enough to help. That's how I got my daughter back. Not through millions, but through service. She came every Saturday, helping serve meals, organizing clothing donations, sitting with people and listening to their stories. She was particularly good with the younger homeless, the runaways and throwaways who trusted her in ways they couldn't trust adults at BY Year 3. We helped 86 people. Some failed, relapsed, and disappeared back into the streets. That was the hardest part, accepting that not everyone could be saved, that some people weren't ready. But most succeeded, finding jobs, reconnecting with families, and rebuilding lives they thought were lost forever. Then Blackwood called me with news that shook everything. David, I found something in Mr. Harper's papers, a journal from 1969. You need to see this. The entry was dated December 15th, 1969. The man who saved me finally told me his full name today, Maurice Miller. He's been like a father to me these past 2 years. He mentioned a son, Stephen, living in Ohio. I wonder if I'll ever meet his family, if I'll ever be able to repay this debt. Stephen was my father's name. There's more, Blackwood said, flipping pages. Maurice Miller knew exactly who your uncle was. He has his own journal entry from that same day. Morris's handwriting was shaky but clear, told young Roland my name today. Don't think he realizes I know who he is, Doris's brother, who went missing after the war. Family thinks he's dead. Won't betray his trust by telling them. But I'm glad I could help Doris's blood. Good boy. Just lost. He'll find his way. M.Y. grandfather had known all along. He'd saved his sister-in-law's brother, never telling anyone, never taking credit. The secret created ripples across decades, ending with Uncle Roland saving me. Standing in that penthouse where Uncle Roland died alone, I realized the real inheritance wasn't money or property. It was proof that kindness creates circles, that helping others comes back in ways we never see, and that love operates in shadows and decades and through people we barely know. To BY Year 5, I'd helped 103 people escape homelessness. The foundation had grown, with other donors joining our cause. Josiah had become a respected expert in outreach, speaking at conferences about dignity and social services. My daughter was studying social work in college, planning to continue the mission, but the best moment came when I found an old photo in Uncle Roland's desk. It was from my grandfather's funeral, which I barely remembered. In the back, standing alone, was a younger Uncle Roland. He'd come to say goodbye to the man who saved him, even though no one knew their connection. On the back, in Roland's handwriting, Maurice Miller, 1910 to 1985. You saved me without asking for anything. I'll pay it forward. I promise. And he had, through me, through the 100 lives we changed, through the thousands more the foundation would help in years to come. The money had been the tool, but the real gift was understanding that we're all connected, that kindness travels through time, and that today's homeless person might be tomorrow's savior. Uncle Roland had learned that from my grandfather. I'd learn it from the streets. And somewhere out there, someone we help would learn it too, passing it on to someone else in need. That's how the world actually changes. not through $47 million inheritances, but through one person helping another, creating chains of compassion that stretch across generations. That why grandfather started it with a desperate veteran behind his bookshop. Uncle Roland continued it with his fortune and his faith in me. And now it was my turn to keep the chain going, one life at a time. Standing in that penthouse, no longer homeless, but never forgetting what it felt like, I finally understood what Uncle Roland meant about accepting help. It wasn't weakness to take someone's hand. It was the first link in a chain that would eventually pull someone else to safety. The fortune wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. And somewhere out there, my grandfather and Uncle Roland were watching, satisfied that their investment in kindness had finally paid its dividends. Fire, thanks for listening. Sparkling hard if this story moved you. Share it with someone who needs it. Drop a comment with the part that hit you most. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.